So, Liz just said Galacticos, so expectations are quite high. You know? So it's not a good way to start a conversation. So I would ask you very briefly to introduce a little bit yourself, to talk a little bit about your company real quickly, and let's go to the conversation. So Juan, please.
Yes, I'm Juan Urdiales, co-founder of Job and Talent. We're a workforce marketplace connecting workers with companies with the aim of providing job security to the temporary workers at the same time that we provide more committed and productive and efficient workforce for companies.
Iker.
Thanks for having me. So I'm Iker Marcaide. 12 years ago, I founded Flywire, which is the company that actually the first Spanish company with Spanish origins that started trading in Nasdaq. And then since 2014, I'm focused on Thubi, where essentially we try to use the company as a tool to solve some of the social and environmental challenges that we live. And we have a venture builder where we create companies from scratch together with co-founders and entrepreneurs. We have a network of schools, and we have eco districts and projects on reinventing cities, as well as Thubi Capital, which is our investment arm, where we actually we have investment strategies, we have different funds, and so kind of taking a very broad perspective, and we would see ourselves as impact investors, impact entrepreneurs, working on very different themes, climate change, creating a more circular economy, poverty, etc.
Super interesting. Having a business mindset in all these areas I think it's really, really important and interesting. Felipe?
I'm Felipe Navillo, the other side of Job and Talent.
I feel kind of in between.
Yeah.
Like in between of something good.
It's strange. It's the first time that we are in the same panel at the same place, no? So it's a magic moment. But started with Juan 13 years ago. Have gone through many different, moments, and really excited to be here. Thanks.
How many times have you been bankrupt?
Sorry?
How many times have you been bankrupt?
Or about two.
Three, four times probably. Technically, legally, technically 3, 4. Legally, none, because I think I've been a bit of a resilience story. That is also something very important for everybody starting their own business. That it is an ultra Iron Man. Building a company.
That's important to keep in mind now when we discuss about unicorns. No? What it takes to become a unicorn.
Yeah.
Oliver?
So I'm Oliver Payes. I'm one of the co-founders, CEO of Aircall. What we do is a contact center software for small and medium businesses. We started in 2014, and we're pretty international. So I started from Madrid, Paris, New York, and now Australia.
Okay. So my first question to all of you is it really that important to become a unicorn? What is it good for? Is it just for ego? Is it for other things, Felipe?
I mean, being honest, our way of thinking on unicorn probably is not the same as is on the press, no? Because at the end of the day, we have been going through so many years, so many things. We have seen so many ups and downs that like if you start thinking of yourself as you have achieved something, no? I believe companies that have achieved something is Facebook, Instagram, that really changed industries, Amazon, and we still have a lot of way to go, no? So probably in the past was not that bad, and right now is not that good. So you need to keep on looking, to the end goal that you have, and it's always good, obviously, to go up in valuation, be able to attract talent, and build a team that is probably the money is typically for that, but we don't tend to say that to ourselves, being honest, no?
We see ourselves much more as a less sexy animal that is a camel. Probably a camel that has become, after a lot of resilience, a unicorn, so it's more like a camel corn or something like that,
Yeah, especially now that, maybe you used to be a unicorn some months ago, but now with all these, adjustments in valuations, etc., now it's completely different, no? So how do you see, Iker, how do you see in your perspective, unicorns post this like inflation or crisis that we are starting to see?
So I would say, I think for me there is a general theme, which is, you live the life for yourself, not for others. I think that applies also to entrepreneurship and we start companies, right? I think it's, I think many of us that we started companies, you start companies because you're obsessed with a problem that you want to solve and you want to do your best. And then over time, you're kind of in a situation, right? I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs because, like any company after, looking backwards, it seems it was very easy and it was really a roller coaster, right? And there were several times that you're about to shut down, that you had, big issues and, you had a miracle and, you went ahead. So I think it's kind of every day focusing on kind of what matters to you and maybe even purpose, I would say, and trying to do something that's meaningful, that you feel proud of, and that will take you to good places, whatever the terms or the coins or where the public markets are or how the market evolves.
And elaborating a little bit on that, I think I personally feel a lot of respect for what you are doing because you're building it's not a company, it's like like a way of doing things, no? Like trying to do things that have a positive impact in society, in the environment, etc. But with the mindset of an entrepreneur and a businessman, no? So how do you think a company can at the same time have both legitimate interest of being a business and being good for the planet and for the society, but also scale, no? Because I think now with technology you can maybe be profitable, but it's not that easy to scale. No?
Yeah, we'll have to work in that intersection of where we create financial value, social value, and environmental value. So when we look at new models, we need those three pieces, right? So it could be great financial opportunities, but we don't feel that there is, additionality and a contribution on the social and environmental side. And I like to say that, everything starts small that can be big, and everything big started small, right? So I think sometimes it's more the mindset, right, that you're having when you're starting these projects. And it's true that our kind of tagline, is solving challenges for a better future, and we do that very broad on purpose because the themes can be very different, very broad. And when people think about impact investing, some people assimilate it to like sub-market returns, and from market returns to philanthropy, there is a big spectrum, right? So in our case with Thubi, we look for market returns. So we, the funds, the venture debt fund or the angel fund we put together, all these different initiatives, we need to achieve market returns because that's our way that we think we can mainstream this, right? Because it's as comparable and even better than other things. And this is possible. I mean, we see our capital as catalytic capital, right? Maybe the one that takes the initial risk, when maybe the projects from the venture builder, we put together the teams, we make the investment company, and then people come in as co-investors, and the same with the funds. Sometimes, put the team together, we make the anchor investment, and then other people come along, right? When maybe things are a bit more tangible or people can understand the project. So, but we do that in a way that enables our co-investors, which are an essential piece of our equation, market returns, so they can really mainstream and scale this up.
Yeah, super interesting. And so, Oliver, how do you see in your company, you're connecting like consumers with companies, no, through voice, no, and you're kind of like taking an important piece of the market of a more like traditional companies. So how do you see the relationship between companies and consumers?
Yeah, if you think about it, I mean, voice sucks, right? I mean, nobody wants to talk to anybody, right? You want to send text and that's it. Even when you date someone, you want to date or break up with someone by text, right? But still, what's getting very interesting is, and especially since COVID, actually customers engage with brands in multiple channels, right? So you will, let's say you want to buy something or you want to take information about something, you're going to send a chat, you're going to send an email, you're going to put a ticket, and you're going to make a phone call sometime, right? Or you're going to go to the store as well. And so where voice is very interesting is it's super interactive, It's really, when it's critical, when it's urgent, when you need really deep information, you want to call, you don't want to chat. And so what's very interesting is to build a kind of a 360 view. What we see a lot of companies doing is approaching all the channels, whether offline, online, whether voice, text, or in person, trying to think, how do I consolidate the information so that the next time you'll contact us, Maria, well, I'll know what you told someone else. I know what you sent as a message. I know what you said over the phone. And so I'm going to delight you better. I think what's key for the brand is using every interaction to have great experience, because people don't come to the retail anymore. I mean, they come less, right? So every time you talk, even over the phone, how do you create a great experience? And to do that, you need to gather the data to anticipate the needs of the customers.
And how do you see that has changed in the past, I don't know, 5, 10 years? Because, you know, at least in my opinion, no, I think consumer internet has clearly, there are some countries obviously that are more innovative, no? And in my opinion, China is definitely, in terms of consumer internet, they go like way ahead. In China, that was the first time I saw someone paying with a cell phone, or someone sending like a voice message. How do you see how fast and what has changed in the past 5 years, and what do you think is going to happen in the next?
I think what has changed is historically you would approach like customer conversations in a very industrial way. In a sense, you have to minimize the cost and it just has to work. But it was, let's say, it has changed to how do we create value for the customers? How do we create memorable moments for the customers, right? Not only, okay, answering the question, but creating a moment where it's going to build up the brand in the mind of the customers. So this is really has become, you know, much more important for brands, especially since COVID again, right? And you can use a lot of the technology. I mean, the technologies have come together, all the integrations, all the what you're mentioning, right? The fact that you can connect all the channels. This is now very easy to deploy, very easy to integrate all the data, all the AI that comes into conversations, right? What we do now is, you know, transcribing conversations, surfacing insights to understand, you know, the tone, the sentiment of the customers. All that becomes now available.
Yeah, and everything is more exposed, no? And do you guys want to add anything to what Oliver just said?
Okay.
No? Okay.
It seems Oliver is the expert. You know, so you can only say
Exactly.
yes. It's like
No, but
We are happy customers, you know, I can say that.
so we live in a world with everything is more exposed, no? So consumers have much more power, and in your case, Felipe and Juan, you're doing something really interesting, which is working with especially a kind of workers that maybe it's a lower level of qualification, etc. Thank you. How do you see the trends? Well, what do you think is going to happen in the next 5, 10 years, especially what's starting to happen in the United States and Europe, with, for example, companies like Amazon and the employees starting to unionize in that way, talking about the empowerment of consumers or the ability to technology to empower people, no? So what do you think? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I think coming back to the trend that you mentioned, you know, like in the last 4 or 5 years, probably what we have seen. 5 years ago, everybody was talking about the Uberization of labor, no, and everything was going to be independent contractor. It was about flexibility, no, and companies need flexibility, and people to some degree they need flexibility, no. But in the last 4 or 5 years, it has become more visible that people need stability, and they need to be able to pay for the rent, to pay for their bills, for the family. No, and actually what we have been seeing in the last 4 or 5 years, and COVID has also helped on that, you know, like is more right to the workers, more, you know, like getting back some of the things that they have lost, because somehow they were a bit treated of industrialized workforce, minimizing cost. And then especially with COVID, people realized that the technology is great, but, you know, like we needed the people. Now the frontline workers have been the key during the pandemic. So at the end of the day, I think that there is going, the next 4 or 5 years probably is going to be a reshape of how the blue-collar population works. And it's going to improve, like the same Google improved a lot the way white collars work. It's going to be a massive change on the way those people are treated, the opportunities, financial inclusion, benefits, perks. So I believe that's going to change massively.
And Iker, in your case, but you have, I mean, part of your goal is the integration, no, in many sense, like different income, trying to stabilize the different income like sources or nationalities. So what's your opinion on that?
So, it's funny, I think it was like a few months back that Felipe and I had, breakfast together. And for me, it's, and it's really interesting how Job and Talent has kind of, is evolving, because for me, it's how to give better opportunities for people.
Yeah.
And kind of raise in that ladder of, progression, with your job, with your education, with your opportunities. And for us, for example, kind of thinking on models that you can, enable anyone to have a decent life for themselves and their loved ones. I think it's fundamental, right? So for me, when I started Zuby, and initially it was called Zuby Labs because it was more focused on creating companies, right? And when we kind of got to COVID, we realized that, we needed to contribute to our purpose by investing in other companies, not, because many were suffering. But for me, what I realized is that, when I came back to Valencia, so Flywire was between Boston and Valencia, and then, maybe it was, with 30 years old, figuring out, it was the first time in my life really figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. Maybe until that point, it was like, there's always a next thing to be done. And what I realized when I had my first child is that his well-being, it was going to be directly correlated to the well-being of others and of the planet, right? So, my son's life would not be better by having more money. Probably is by the rest of the people having more money, because then you have more, safer cities, more social cohesion, et cetera, right? So, and that's kind of where I committed to, like, I want to devote my energy, my resources in tackling some of these issues. And, it's very exciting seeing, a Job and Talent taking some angles there on, like, how do I help, it's not just employers, but how do I help them as human beings in progressing, right, further in their lives for their loved ones.
Yeah, and I think it's fantastic when you give opportunities to people, and then you realize how people react. No, it's all about having the opportunities. No, and some people are so lucky that they do have the opportunity because of their personal conditions, but others it's not that easy. No, so I think you three guys are doing something really.
I think
really.
We were talking before about, we mentioned about purpose-driven organizations. And I think that in the future, honestly, seeing the new talent that is going out of universities, I think is dramatically different than from we were out of universities. I remember years ago, everyone wanted to be Gordon Gekko. They wanted to work for Goldman Sachs, for the big banks. They wanted to be brokers, Wolf of Wall Street. That is not anymore the trend. The trend is to be like Gandhi, actually, in universities. So they want to do more NGOs. They want to join a company where they actually feel identified with the purpose of the company. And this is a game of talent. So if you don't have a clear purpose as a company, you're not going to be attracting the top talent right now out of university and society. So in my opinion, I think that in 10 years' time, it's like all the companies will need to have this purpose and this consciousness, because otherwise you won't survive as a company. You won't be capable to attract the people that you need for your business.
Sure. And I think like references have changed, no? Because like maybe, as you were saying, no, in the past it was like the financial sector and all these, but now I think younger generations may think, I don't want to work in the industry my father used to work because that industry destroyed the planet, no? Mm-hmm. Or maybe I don't want to spend as much time as my parents were spending working because I want to work from home. I want to commute less. I want to spend more time with my kids. No, so all these references have also changed. No, and
I wouldn't just say younger generations. My perspective is for example, we talk a lot with serial entrepreneurs, people that have set up companies, maybe exited, and say, like the next one, I want to do something with a real purpose. Yep. And you guys seem to be the guys to start a company with. as guys, driven by sustainability and impact, what potential ideas, could we work on? So I think it's kind of across the board. It's attracting new talents, it's younger generations. Those that maybe kind of check the box is like, okay, I did a company, went well. Now let's maybe do something that kind of matters a bit more or that syncs to my specific motivations.
You know what happened to us like years ago when we started with Job and Talent? We remember that we were evangelizing a lot in the labor market about the conditions of the workers. And many times we were visiting companies that they were saying, oh, I really want to hire those workers for independent contractor model. Yeah. Why paying so much or giving so many rights to those workers? I want them to be as cheap as I can.
Yeah, it's a cost perspective.
It has been a dramatic change in the last years. More consciousness on the companies. I think that the world is clearly more moving towards a bigger consciousness, especially on the big corporates, because they start to have those type of ESG rankings, and those things are starting to pay off actually right now. It's like,
yeah. So as it usually happens, then first it comes the entrepreneur with the purpose or the idea, then the entrepreneur creates a business. Now we're seeing that we can actually create businesses with purpose, and that can be businesses that, profitable businesses that scale, and then the money comes, no? The investors, and there's a lot of investors now investing in this kind of companies. So talking about investors, Oliver, how do you see now the investors? How do you see what is happening with valuations, companies, public and private companies with important cuts in valuations? I don't know if you want to say if you're now in the process of raising or not, but in any case, how do you see it?
Yeah, so luckily we raised money a year ago, so we have plenty of runway, so we don't have to raise, and we're not planning to. Maybe before I answer your question, I was thinking about the unicorn, the very first unicorn question you had. I think one of the mistakes people made, and the journalists made, is they considered unicorns means $1 billion valuation. That makes no sense, right? And now you see it, because then valuation go up like crazy, like last year, and then they fall 70% like this year. Does that change, does that mean something for a unicorn? No. Like if you think about Airbnb, has it changed your life? Yes, it has changed hospitality. Uber has changed mobility. Spotify has changed music, right? These are unicorns, whatever the valuation, right? So the question is, let's say Aircall will be a unicorn the day we change customer interactions, the way people engage with brands and customers, right? This is the meaning of unicorn. So more than valuation. And so to your point, of course, most of the unicorns of last year are dead, right? Last year there was one new unicorn per day. Makes no sense, right? Now, all the valuations are down. Interestingly, there's a little bit of, not panic, but many investors are not very sure what they should do. Again, we're not raising, but obviously I'm constantly talking to investors, and I'm sure you all are. And some of them have gone very, very pessimistic and really rebased the valuation on a 7x revenue, something like that, which for SaaS, for a startup, fast-growing company, that's good at historical level. Some others are still in the 15x, which is a bit crazy, right? Nobody is in the 40 times revenue that was last year. Makes absolutely no sense. How do you pay back 40 times revenue? So I would say, I think this year is going to be return to the normal. But it's actually not bad. Last year was the anomaly, and 2020 was the anomaly. Today it's just normal. We're back to normal level, and in the end, a startup is like any other company. You have to get your money back if you're an investor. So 7 times revenue for a fast growth company, that's good. Right? So, I feel last year we raised at over $1 billion valuation. Maybe we will have that now. And that's fine. That's really fine. It doesn't change the fact we're building a great company, creating great customer interactions. And that's what matters, right?
Yeah. I agree. I think this is a great moment for entrepreneurs, really bad for the investors, okay? It's great for entrepreneurs because when the market is open, now it's closed, but when it's open like it was last year, somehow you're forced to raise some money, to bring some cash to the company as also a defensive move against potential competition. You don't want to be seeing how a smaller company, a worse company than you, raise much more money than you, and then they can hire more engineers, more team, and then they can build a better product than you. So now, the good thing is that cash is what it is. It's on the banks of every company, and now it's a matter of executing and creating. And that's the moment for entrepreneurs. This is why we created companies. We do not create companies for raising money. It's like we create to really work on a 10x user experience on both, in our case, on both sides of our marketplace for workers and companies. And now is a perfect moment to be focused on that. So the only thing is that you get the investors very nervous right now, of course. It is. They will need to explain to the LPs, their stories. It's like it's not really our issue. Our issue is, and our focus is to create great companies, and this is a better moment for that.
It's also an opportunity. A big trend I'm seeing is a lot of companies on that moment raising, pushing for growth. Just start lowering the quality bar on recruitment, on product, on everything. And most of the companies, are reshaping that. And actually, obviously it's going to be painful, but I think that is going to be a better outcome because those companies will be better and will have a higher chance to deliver that 10x experience. So that's a trend we are seeing across all the startups we're speaking with.
Yeah, hunger is always good. It's good, no? To increase quality, to increase efficiency. So we only have a few minutes left. So I wanted to make one last question about IPOs, no? And so in the last months or years, it seemed to be like, Europe was a little bit behind in terms of innovation, valuations, and, the US was a much better market in terms of like public companies, public tech companies. Now we've seen that the correction in valuations and stock prices have dropped. I mean, has been much higher in the US than Europe. So it seemed to be like, Europe was not as bad as maybe some were thinking. So if you happen to think about an IPO now, or in your experience about like IPOing in the past, where should you do it? Is it Europe? Is it the US? What are your opinions on this?
I think timing. So it's like I think what you can control as an entrepreneur is doing a great job every day with the customer, solving real problems. And then there's going to be a bunch of stuff which is going to be macro and markets and IPO, and especially on growth and near IPO, pre-IPO, that's going to be very influenced. I would say that that's the investment market that is kind of with a lot of spreads in terms of valuations and term sheets and stuff. I think on the angel side and early stage, it's a bit more stable because it's longer term. But I think it's really hard. I think is when you're considering that point, it's like you do the deep dive, right? And at different points in time might make sense. I think some markets, others, or it was always kind of M&A or IPO, kind of the two paths.
If I can tell you a simple story. When we started the company in 2013, then we said, okay, let's incorporate the company, right? We want to, at some point, invoice our customers. And my co-founders are French, and so we had a first team in Paris, and I thought, let's create a French company, right? A French limited society. And actually, a friend of mine told me, no, you just create a US company because you're going to end up in the New York Stock Exchange. And I was like, come on, we have no product, no team, no customer, nothing, no funding, nothing. Yeah, come on. This is going to end up in the NASDAQ. And funnily, so Aircall is a Delaware C Corp. It's a US company. It was very easy. I did that online, free trial almost, free, okay. Because at the time, that was 8 years ago, that was obvious, right? There was no way you would go on the stock exchange in Amsterdam or wherever in Europe, right? Now, this has changed a lot. And now we're typically 2-3 years away from IPO. We're thinking about it, getting in shape, all the processes, the CPQ, all that, whatever, for the IPO. And my CFO, my finance director, often tells me, I'm not sure we should go to the US. I mean, the US is a very big market for us, but Europe has become a huge market. You can really build huge companies out of Europe. Really, you have huge companies only focused on Europe. 2, the US is painful. You have the SEC, super painful. SOX is super painful. It costs millions. I mean, that Flywire, it's a nightmare. And finally, the investors are the same. I mean, the US investors, they come to Europe because there's so many scale-ups in Europe that they have to be here. So we moved. I'm not sure where we're going to IPO, if we ever IPO, but that's the plan. But now we're really rebalancing and thinking maybe Europe is actually not a bad place. So we might end up having a US company getting quoted in Europe. So.
Juan, real quick.
I have a more positive view on the US, not for Job and Talent, but honestly, I think the US is still many years ahead of Europe. You mentioned that there has been a huge correction on European tech companies too, during this period, even stronger than in the main companies in Europe. Not in the whole stock exchange, but in particular in tech, it has been even broader. And the focused on tech funds have suffered more in Europe than in the US. And honestly, there is much more money in the US still, and much more knowledge of investors on technology. It's like, so the question is more about if you can really list there, because you have business and you're prepared as a business to handle all the requirements and everything. But honestly, I think it's still the best place for any company to list, And in our case, we don't yet have any plans of IPO or anything. But if they ever come, we'll consider both the US and Europe, because I think we are forced to consider that as the key market.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well,
That's fair.
thank you so much to all of you. Really interesting. It's super. It's great to see that level of ambition and quality. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.